And to include the 10-2 conversation, you've got to also include Alabama, who went and took care of business on the road at night in Death Valley against LSU in a dominant win. That was impressive from Alabama. Now, Alabama is a 2-loss team that has some, I think, cred. You go into Death Valley and beat them 42-13. Like, that's something now. That's an Ole Miss team that just beat Georgia that lost to LSU. And what did we learn about LSU during the course of the last few weeks? They cannot stop a running quarterback. So I told you before the game that Jalen Milroe was going to run crazy, and that's exactly what he did. This is a Milroe Heisman campaign that like gets kickstarted right at the right moment in November. Because up until this point, I was pretty confident in leaving him out of even a 5-man list. But now, after that performance, 109 through the air, 185 on the ground, 4 rushing TDs, it's like, oh yeah, definitely Jalen Milroe is involved in the Heisman conversation. And this team is like right back in the hunt, right back in the thick of things. It has looked, I'll just say it, bumpy at some points during this season, in the first season for Kalen DeBoer. I think we can all acknowledge that. It's looked bumpy at times. But Alabama rolled out there against LSU and did what they needed to do, and they dominated LSU. It was not a close football game. It wasn't close at all. And a big part of that was the fact that LSU cannot stop the running quarterback. And it's a problem when something pops up and there's a question that arises in your program and then it perpetuates. That's a problem. And that's what Brian Kelly has got to fix. And that's what Alabama and Milroe exploited. You know, you looked up and it's like they've outscored their opponents 76-13 in 2 games since that loss to Tennessee. So something happened with them. Kalen DeBoer is a very good football coach. I know that everyone wanted to throw dirt on him and say, this ain't Nick Saban. And you know what? You're right. It's not Nick Saban. It's Kalen DeBoer, and he's damn good. And you see them now answering those questions. You see them being resilient and growing and progressing as a team and as a program. I thought that was really good. It calls into question then, like, so who wins the SEC? Like, who's the best team in the SEC? So after last weekend, Georgia takes a second loss. So now Ole Miss has 2 losses. Bama has 2 losses. LSU, they've got 3. They're probably out. You know, Missouri is their coach, Eli Drinkowitz, is trying to tell everybody that they're in the playoff hunt, but they're not. They're not even close to the playoff hunt. They've got 2 losses. The only 2 road games that they've played in SEC play on the road, they've lost 75-10 combined. So Missouri is out, but you've got all these other teams now. You've got A&M at 5-1 and Tennessee at 5-1 and Texas at 5-1. So there's your top crew. And you're like, okay, those teams could possibly get to Atlanta and play for an SEC title as a 1-loss team. But do we think that we're going to get 2 teams to the SEC title game as just a 1-loss team? Becomes pretty murky. Tennessee is going to go to Athens and be close to a 9.5-point dog, and Texas A&M still have to play each other. So do we get 2 teams at 1 loss in the SEC championship game? Probably not. Probably not. Which then leads to the next question. Of the 10-2s, potentially, who's going? This is going to get crazy. Look at all the 2-loss teams in the SEC. You've got Georgia at 5-2. You've got Alabama 4-2. Ole Miss 4-2. Ole Miss has a win over Georgia. Alabama has a win over Georgia. You've got LSU at 3-2, but I don't love them. And Missouri at 3-2, and I don't love them. So now you're really looking at like 6 teams. I call them the 6 above-the-line teams because LSU with 3 losses total is not going to the playoffs. And Missouri, even at 10-2, with 2 losses on the road in the SEC by a combined 75-10, they're not going to the playoffs. That is out. So now you're looking at the top 3 and the next 3. A&M, Tennessee, Texas, Georgia, Alabama, Ole Miss. All of those teams ain't going to the playoff. I'm just telling you right now. I'm telling you right now. there is going to be a 10-2 team out of the SEC that is left out of this playoff. It is going to happen. And I've been screaming this from the rooftops for a long time, since really preseason. I've been telling you 9-3 is not cutting it. It is not cutting it. You are not getting into the playoff at 9-3. Everybody was talking about, whoa, with the 12-team playoff, we've expanded. So, of course, a 9-3 team in the SEC is going to go to the college football playoff. That's not the case. That is not the case. And I'm telling you that a 10-2 team is going to get left out. And the problem is they've all beat each other. You know, Bama and Ole Miss now have the win over Georgia. Georgia has a win over Texas, so Texas better not lose the game against Texas A&M. If Texas loses to Texas A&M, we might think a 10-2 Texas is totally safe. But at that point, remember, Texas's best win would be Vandy. So it's like, are we sure that everybody is safe? And the answer is actually no. The answer is actually no. I don't know who controls their own destiny in this, because it could be an entire disaster at the end of the year as far as 2 lost teams tied in the SEC. It could be crazy. Now, who do I think is the best? Let me just give that opinion. I still think Texas is the best team in the SEC. They are the most balanced on offense. They have an answer at quarterback if their starter doesn't play well. And I think that they have the best defense in the conference. Remember, they have yet to give up 300 yards or more in a game. This is a very good defense. They gave up a ton of short fields because their starting quarterback played terrible. And around him, they played terrible in one half against Georgia. They just did, and they got beat. It's a long season. I still think Texas is the best team. Does that mean that they definitely beat Texas A&M and go to the SEC championship game? I'm not totally sure about that. The SEC, man, is murky. And again, if you take anything from what I'm talking about right now, it's these 2 things. Georgia's in trouble, and there will be a 10-2 SEC team left out of the playoff. That is deep in my bones. That is absolutely going to happen this year. So start preparing for that, SEC fans, because you're going to be screaming your faces off if and when that happens.
Thank you for watching the Joel Klatt Show YouTube channel. And if you liked this clip, make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel, and you can stay up to date on all of my college football coverage.